Down at the bottom of the posted warning was SOS, and which meant shoot on sight. My friend's a private investigator, and she saw it as she went to interview somebody at the jail. She saw it up there, and recognizing my picture, asked to see it. They've harassed.
And what did Cary James Gagan do that he needed immunity from the federal government?
Well, Megan, he just delivered the detonators for the many bombs at the F.B.I. Murrah building and the C4 plastic explosives, and cased the building, doing just what the FBI told him to do: cooperate with the Middle Eastern operatives.
Which buildings?
Good question. Well, let the videotape of the proceeding tell it. Here we go.
I want to make a comment here about J.W. Bates. Does anybody know for sure, is that not Bates' son? B-A-T-E-S-O-N?
Yeah.
So for the court reporter's benefit, we need to spell it right. B-A-T-E-S-O-N. J.W. Bateson was the name on the architect plan that Mr. Gagan saw on the table at the Hilton Inn South. Mr. Gagan, did you ever come to Oklahoma City to case the Murrah building for these people?
Yes.
Approximately how many times?
Twice.
When was the last time you were in Oklahoma City to case the building?
April 13, 1995.
Before the bombing?
Yeah.
What three cities were originally considered as by the conspirators for this explosion, for this operation?
Denver, Oklahoma City, and Phoenix.
Did either of the other two federal complexes in Denver or Phoenix, did they have daycare centers in the building?
Denver's daycare center is in the customs house, which is across the street, down in the basement, and it's an old cement, very secure building. And I can't remember.
Here's the letter. Would you describe the circumstances under which you delivered this letter to Tina Rowe? Tell us who Tina Rowe is, and then if you would read the letter to us, please.
Tina Rowe is the U.S. Marshal in Denver, Colorado, in charge of the District of Colorado. As I told you, it was delivered by my friend Bill Bears, mainly because I couldn't go back in the building. And it says, Tina Rowe, U.S. Marshal, April 6, 1995. Dear Ms. Rowe, after leaving Denver for what I thought would be for a long time, I returned here last night because I have specific information that within 2 weeks, a federal building is, and I got parentheses S, is to be bombed in this area or nearby. The previous request I made for you to contact me on the 27th and 28th, I got April here, and I hurriedly wrote this. It was supposed to be March when I first took the handwritten letter in, so I put April by mistake. We're ignored by you, Mr. Allison, who is the Assistant U.S. Attorney who gave me immunity, and my friends at the FBI. I would not ignore this specific request for you personally to contact me immediately regarding the plot to bomb the federal building. If the information is false, request Mr. Allison to charge me accordingly. If you and/or your office does not contact me as I so request herein, I will never again contact any law enforcement agency, federal or state, regarding these matters set forth in the letter of immunity. I signed my name. I wrote call 832-4091 in parentheses now.
What's the date of that?
April 6, 1995.
13 days before now.
What prompted you to write that letter?
As I said, I went to Las Vegas, and I was supposed to go on to Mexico City. I took the trip to Kingman, Arizona. And I might add that Stephen Jones and that defense team has the receipts from my trip to Kingman on April 4th and 5th. And I went back to Vegas and flew home on the 11:30 flight on American West. I have the ticket here somewhere. And got into Denver about 2:33 in the morning on the 6th. I had called my friend Sharon, told her to leave a key for me because I needed to get into the apartment, and I had been planning to go back. Got there, I had to wait till 10, called Billy Bears, and he said he could pick me up around 11, so I hurriedly wrote this note, left, he picked me up, and as I said, he hand-delivered this inside the building, and got a signature, and they never called him.
Would this be the signature? Is this a copy of the envelope that you delivered that letter in? And is that not a signature of the person who received your letter?
Yes, it is.
Okay, we want to enter these two things in evidence.
So, Mr. Wagner, why did Gagan get involved?
Well, Megan, it was the promise of a tax-free $2 million federal reward for stopping a domestic terrorist act. That's what motivated Casey James Gagan and got him involved in this whole ugly mess. Watch this.
Finish my question, sir. I'm getting at motive here. And we're going to assume there's more than one motive. I understand one of your motives was to stop the bombing, was to warn the authorities. There's also another motive we need to discuss, because you are aware of certain rules or statutes or something covering rewards, and I want in the record what you know about the rewards and what you thought might happen or what you were hoping would happen if they arrested these guys and gave you credit for the arrest.
Pursuant to statute, the federal statutes, is if you prevent an act of terrorism from occurring on domestic soil, you're entitled to from between $500,000 and $2 million. As was just stated, I was under the impression when I came forward that if they would have done their job, if they would have wired me, polygraphed me, tapped the phones, followed me, this matter would have been over in 1 or 2 months at the most. I didn't get into this for a period of like what it turned out to be, but they left me naked out there. So like you said, I'm not a choir boy. I know what goes on, but I'm not also some bomber of American citizens. And I thought that they would immediately polygraph me because they're supposed to. Even the attorney told me, "Gagan, they're going to polygraph you." I said, "Let's get after it. Let's just do it." And they never did.
Is it fair to say that part of your motivation was the potential of reward?
Of course, yeah.
Was it fair to say that the $250,000 that you received from the terrorists is, I wouldn't say peanuts, but compared to the potential reward you were looking at from the government, it wasn't a very large amount of money?
No.
You were expecting much more from the government?
Yes.
Well, people, certainly Cary James Gagan is not a Boy Scout or choir boy. But why did the FBI, your FBI at work, supply Gagan with the detonators?
And why did the FBI supply Gagan with the C4?
You crossed the border with them, who you delivered them to. Can you tell us the detonator story?
Right after I was granted immunity, I notified the FBI that I was being asked to go to Mexico City or Paraguay or Brazil to meet an IRA terrorist on the run that perfected specific timers and detonators. The timer was specific. It could be set for up to 30 days. I went to Mexico City. I notified the FBI and asked them if I was going to be allowed to go. They never got back to me, so I went anyway. I went and met the person in Mexico City, and I brought back approximately, between 15 and 20 timers and detonators back up through Nogales.
And delivered them to whom?
I brought them back into Denver and delivered them to the Middle Eastern. Okay, so.
Yep, your tax dollars at work, killing Americans with your hard-earned tax dollars. Why does the FBI do these things? Maybe we will find out why when we know why the FBI covers up the truth.
Let's go to the mail truck and the load of explosives. Tell us that story.
This occurred on January 14th, 1995. From the period of time September 14th to January 14th, which is 4 months, the FBI had never recontacted me despite my sending in all this information. And I was contacted on January 14th, 1995 was a Saturday. So I was contacted and told to go to a bar called the Metro Inn, located by Stapleton Airport, where the airport used to be in Denver. And I was to pick up a truck and drive a load of explosives to another point up by the foothills in Denver. So I called the FBI from a payphone at 9th and Ogden, or 9th and Logan, I'm sorry, and spent about 40 minutes on the phone telling them my name and immunity, and since it was Saturday, it was a duty agent. And I said, hey, I need some assistance here. I'm supposed to haul this, or drive this truck filled with explosives from point A to point B. I need you to call me at this number. I'm taking this lady's car back. So I drove out to where this lady lived out in Littleton, and no call. I waited and finally had to get a cab over to the Metro Inn, and waiting for me over there on the backside was a mail truck, by the mail truck, the U.S. mail trucks. And I later learned, and I told the FBI and the marshals, that it was obtained at an auction, but with everything taken off and had been repainted to look like a mail truck. So I got in, and they told me which way to go to get on I-70. It's probably 25 minutes without traffic to where I was supposed to go. And I drove, and I just figured that no FBI showed up, that they had to have somebody. This was at one point where I said, well, they got to have somebody around in this group that's an agent, because I'm not really allowed to drive explosives around Denver. And I looked in the back, and there was a mixer, a Lee-line mixer, 1 or 2 boxes of Sandex explosives from Las Vegas, said high explosives on it, about 50 duffel bags full of bottles of chemicals, ammonium nitrate. I think it said laboratory ammonium nitrate on it, and I made a note of it. Sodium azide, or sodium azide, and all that, and I took it. Yeah.
Is this a copy of that?
Yeah, this is what I had in January '95, and I took it to the Marriott West, and parked it in the place I was told to park it. Went inside and called. I was told to stay in there 20, 30 minutes. I came back out and the truck was gone, and I took the bus back to where I was staying.
In your opinion, could the conspirators have come by Ryder trucks in a similar manner they came by the mail truck?
Oh yeah, that's their MO.
So if there were, say, 3 Ryder trucks in Oklahoma City on April the 19th, the only one that was legitimate is the one that was rented at Junction City, and the other 2 could well have been repaint jobs.
Of course.
Just like this mail truck. Okay. You did haul some C4 at one point. Can you tell us that story?
Oh yeah, that was in May of 1994, prior to my even getting immunity, and that's when I figured it was turning into a bombing thing, because I was asked to take something back to Denver, and I was supposed to check in at the Vegas airport up on top, and they gave me a bag, an athletic bag, and I thought it was cocaine, and so I took.
Did you sniff it?
Yeah, and then I took it back to. I flew back to Denver on Continental Airlines. I had the, kept the ticket and all that type of stuff, and when I got there, I had a stash house in Denver at what they call the Postal Center on the 2nd floor, and I took it there. And later, I contacted the Denver Police Intelligence Bureau, told them I was going to take it downtown. I thought, I can't get caught, and then I knew it was C4. I said, I can't get caught with this when we do live. So I thought, well, I'll call Denver Police Intelligence Bureau, and I left it with this guy that owned the Postal Center, George, this big package. And I went downtown, talked to the Denver Police Intelligence Bureau, told them I had it, and they called the FBI, and about a week or so later, I get a call from the Denver Police Intelligence Bureau saying, since it was Gagan, since it was me, they don't want anything to do with it. So, subsequently, about a week or so later, Omar and Ahmad, these people knew where the stash house was. You could get into it from the 2nd floor. They came in and got it.
So it's your testimony that these Middle Easterners did have in their possession a quantity of C4?
Yeah, probably 20, 30, 40 pounds.
Okay. Let's move.
Whoa, people. 30 pounds of C4 plastic explosive detonators, and he had federal immunity from federal prosecutors as long as Mr. Gagan kept his big mouth shut. And he would have had they paid the $2 million, and you never would have heard of him. But why have the security cameras at the Denver Federal Building proving Mr. Gagan's statements never been revealed? Think about that. All these things he said, they can prove it. Just go look at the security films. You've never seen them. And Mr. Gagan had, at that time, Middle Eastern passports. Watch.
This gentleman here, his name is Muhammad Ali, surname Morshed, who's a terrorist. The FBI knows it. He had no entry visa into America, but that passport was given to me as a ticket in Mexico City. I was to use it. Now this is in 1997, after the feds had already, said what they said about me and my credibility. Well, I turned this into the U.S. Secret Service in Denver and told them specifically, and I have the documentation, I faxed it to, or sent it return receipt registered mail, that this passport was my ticket, and for them, if they wanted to follow me to Mexico City, give me back the passport, follow me to Mexico City and see who I met. The terrorists down there, they could identify certain players and so on and so forth. Well, I mean, it's a very easy thing to do, but they declined. In fact, what they tried to do the next time we met, they tried to kidnap me. They tried to get me to go in a car with them and all that. I said, no, I'm not doing that. We were at Jackson's Hole with the Marriott. And so, this is several years after the bombing, and I'm still in possession of Middle Eastern stuff, and they know it. Well, they took all my information and acted upon it for the G8 conference to protect an attack. But because of what happened with the bombing, and they had to went out on that limb saying I wasn't credible, and they didn't get this and they didn't get that, they can't make me credible 2 years, 3 years later, because then it reverts back to the other. But they got that, and those are color copies of some of the people, Jana Davis, Bill Jasper, and those people took that passport before I turned it in. So they know that I've had Middle Eastern contacts for a long, long time.
Mr. Gagan, we have a request from one of the videographers to put this photo of Mr. Khalil alongside that passport there so he can get it on his. And you don't recognize anybody on this page?
No, I think the one guy that...
Well, Mr. Casey James Gagan never got his $2 million reward for stopping a terrorist act because the FBI didn't want him to stop. They wanted it to happen. It did happen. So they refused to give him the $2 million. He was used by the federal, what should I call them? Federal Nazis. People are getting Americans killed. This is real tricky business. And the last I tracked Mr. Gagan, he was sitting in Arapahoe County Sheriff's Jail, Detention Center, in Arapahoe County in Littleton, Colorado. And a few months later, he was transferred to a federal detention center in unrelated charges. Now, I contacted his girlfriend at the address he gave, and she just wouldn't tell me anything, and neither would her son. But I believe Mr. Gagan is probably getting the short end of justice right now. He never wanted anybody to be killed. He was just looking to get $2 million of your tax money as a reward for stopping the terrorists who blew down the F.B.I. Murrah building, except the FBI didn't want him or themselves to stop it. They wanted it to happen to get an anti-terrorist bill passed, which takes away your civil liberties. Hello? Is there something wrong here? Are there reasons why people have resigned as director of the FBI? Think about this. Well, listen to this. Mr. Gagan is a school teacher, a certified, certificated school teacher.
Isn't the way this thing fell down from the beginning that I was involved with. It was parallel to what McVeigh was doing. I was in the same places and that. I never heard his name or anything like that, but I was in the same place that they were. So it's, I was going to, I just want you to know that, yeah, I was there, and I didn't, plan any explosives or anything like that, but for whatever reason, there was a storage room on the 5th floor. And, that's where, what's her name worked, Carol Khalil, and all these things that, didn't mean anything to me at that time. And all I did was, come down and see if something worked, and went back home.
I forgot to ask you your educational background earlier, Mr. Gagan. Would you tell us whether you're a high school graduate and whether you did college work? Tell us.
Yeah, I went to high school and I graduated from the University of Northern Colorado in Greeley, Colorado, and I had a teaching certificate. I taught school in the Denver Public Schools for a while.
Reminded of that as I see here in your letter to Stephen Jones, so I might as well submit this to you if you'd like to have it in evidence.
Whoa, and Mr. Gagan spoke to attorney Stephen Stone, Timothy McVeigh's attorney. Now, if you read Media Bypass magazine, you already know most of the stuff, but most of you don't read Media Bypass. Watch this.
Because of the first it was Middle Eastern, and then it was no Middle Eastern was involved, but I kept waiting, and I faxed a bunch of stuff to Janet Reno saying, why hasn't somebody come and talked to me? And I kept waiting, and nothing happened, and so I got mad. I thought this was a big, setup, and I didn't know if McVeigh, I didn't know who he was, just by what I'd seen on TV, and I'm thinking, man, this just didn't add up, and so I faxed this to him and told him, this was June 28th, and I think Robert Nye and Julia Sims were up in Denver like 3 days later. Stayed for a couple of days, and then I came down to Enid to see Stephen Jones and discuss his case. But when I saw Stephen Jones in Enid, Oklahoma, it was obvious that he was not going to take on the government, and so I wondered, why am I here? He was going to do.
And do you think, Mr. Wagner, that the federal agents are trying to shut him up?
Absolutely, Megan, absolutely. Mr. Gagan is the missing link between the FBI suppliers and the bombers, in my opinion, based on Gagan, General Benton K. Parton, and Hoppy Heidelberg.
More than 200 years ago, Americans fought a revolution against big government.
He has erected a multitude of new offices and has sent hither swarms of officials to harass our people and eat out their substance.
George III and his bureaucrats taxed and controlled their lives until the people said, enough. The government in Washington, D.C. makes you nostalgic for old King George. The royal tax collectors took about 25% from our ancestors. This year, government at all levels will extract 6% of our money to waste. And not gently. IRS agents use wiretaps, mail openings, informants, disguises, guns, chains, and jails to get every last dime. Meanwhile, at the Federal Reserve, 12 faceless bureaucrats decide your economic future. In secret. How much inflation should there be next year? What should interest rates be? How much of your savings should be transferred to politicians and their favored big banks? The Supreme Court, where individual rights are supposed to be protected, think it's fine if government invades our financial privacy, spies on us in our bedrooms, regulates church schools, and restricts our free speech. Meanwhile, at the Congress, everything is up for grabs as long as it's yours.
I'm Pamela Wistrom, co-host of On Second Thought. And now, for the host and star of this 14-year weekly-long TV show. Oh, are you ready? The one and only William J. Wagner.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Pamela. Tonight, people, we have a show. We have the California 18, or most of them, here on the set. Unfortunately, a few of them were not able to be here tonight, but we have a large crowd here. Among the California 18 here, we hope you will get to know how to defend yourself against what I call the merciless bank gangsters. I'm not an expert, but we've got some people who are close as anything you're ever going to meet to an expert, each in their own specific field. So please pay close attention. With me as our first guest here on the studio is Jack Sooty. Thanks for being with us, Jack. Tell us what you want to tell us what we need to know.
Okay. Thank you, Ellen, for having all of the most of us, the California 18. What a pleasure to have us here as a group. I'm looking at you all for the first time together, and I'll tell you, it's an impressive thing. We are fed up with our judiciary and our prosecutors. We are here gathered because our hearts are pouring out to you, the listeners, to believe that there is corruptness out there going on with our titles, with our properties. They're being stolen, and we need to have your help with us getting the ear of the Attorney General to produce some prosecutions. We know for a fact that people are out there still to this day, after the settlements, after the agreements with the banks, that are still committing fraud. These are not misdemeanors. These are not petty offenses or infractions. These are felonious accounts that people are still doing, and nobody is getting prosecuted. We need to stop this. Our prosecuting agencies have a responsibility, and they've taken an oath to enforce it, and we're sick and tired of the fact they're not doing anything. I myself am a victim. I need to have some justice. I can't get it. For 4 years, I've been fighting my bank, and nothing's been done to prosecute the 4 felonies. Nothing. I've asked 3 agencies, San Diego County DA, Ventura County DA, and now the Attorney General. They don't return my calls, write me back. They ignore me. That's not justice.
Wow. Jack, tell me, is there a website you would recommend people to look at?
Well, I think you have to be careful when you're on the internet and anywhere you go. We're probably going to be feeding you some information here down the road that will tend to give you some direction as to where you can go. Each of us has our own way here tonight, and some of us will be giving you some websites or ideas of where to go. I know an old site that we used to be on, and we started a long time ago, was called Homeowners for Justice. C.J. Holmes started that. She was the founder of the California 18, and why we are here. We have 18 spreadsheets that we put together, and it's a large document that we had blown up. I have an assignment of my deed of trust, which is one of the